Hello, I'm Sharon Ross with Capital City Arts Initiative. CCAI has been presenting exhibitions, art talks, art activities for Carson City and the region since 2003. The initiative has been doing exhibitions here in Western Nevada College's Bristlecone Gallery since last year, and we are now delighted to have Lauren Cardenas here with us from Oxford, Mississippi. Her exhibition, SueoAmericano, is in the gallery now through September 30th. And so Lauren is here to discuss her show, and the show deals with immigration from both a national and personal perspective. Lauren, welcome.
Thank you.
Tell us more about SueoAmericano.
Of course. So the impetus of this show originated with kind of unpacking the American dream and how that dream has kind of been changed over the years. Both my parents are immigrants. My dad is a Mexican-American citizen, came to the States, and then my mom was born along the border, and so she's first generation. So these are kind of ideas that I have been kind of working through for most of my life. So this show is personal, but it's also like an unpacking of kind of the ideals of what immigration has kind of transitioned from over the past years, and especially since when my parents were able to come into the States. And so I guess we'll start with, we can start with, I guess, the original pieces that kind of brought along this show. So these are airplane windows. So the title of the piece is called Ice, Air, In-Flight Meal, and they're numbered 1 through 15. And these pieces were created they were inspired by an NPR article interviewing deportees and their experiences coming into the States, being in the States for years or for a short period of time, and then being deported during those really strict immigration laws. And so I found it really interesting that most of these people climbing or like walking across the desert or not ever coming on a plane and then being deported. And the line that stood out to me was they were given a bottle of water and a cheese sandwich. And he specifically said, like, he made a comment about it being an American cheese sandwich, and I just thought, like, that just resonated with me. These pieces actually are not actual slices of cheese. The original pieces that I have created in the past are. So there is a deterioration factor. The images that are imprinted onto the slices of cheese are images from up in the air from the window, like taking a window shot on a cell phone. So they're airplane window images of this kind of sublime landscape that you get to see or feel, and then they're imprinted onto American cheese slices. And then to kind of push that idea a little bit further, they're encased in plexiglass and then rubber tubing.
To simulate an airplane window.
Yes, yes. And so these photos have been collected over the last couple of years. I have the privilege of being able to travel, and 2017 and 2016 I did a lot of traveling. So I just started collecting photos just because, and then it wasn't until 2018 that I actually started like trying to cultivate this project.
So do you print directly onto a piece of cheese?
I do not. So that was the problem I was running into when I first started this project. Was I was doing all these tests of like what substrates can I imprint, and so a fellow artist in Texas, we went to school together. We were a couple years apart, but she was printing on gelatin, and I was asking, I was like, can I ask what it is that you're using? And she told me temporary tattoo paper, and I tested it out, and it worked like a charm. So I print these on a laser jet printer. So we're using toner, but I've also used inkjet. I haven't quite decided which quality is better, but the film is then transferred onto the image, adheres to the image, and then I take off the film, I wet the back of the image as I imprint it onto the cheese, and then it just transfers onto it. So the image ends up becoming a plastic film. So I'm able to kind of imprint that. There are other artists that actually physically print onto food using, whether it's biodegradable or actual like perishable items. I didn't go into that chemistry because I still wanted to hold the integrity of the image.
Can I ask you if they're real cheese?
Yes, so these are not real slices of cheese. I ran into a couple of problems this past summer. So the actual cheese tends to mold. The first exhibition that they were in, I mailed them the test that I had run prior. They didn't mold for 6 months. It took about 6 months for it to start molding, so I was pretty confident that these would be fine. The show was in August, and I was sending it even further south to New Orleans, and the day of the opening, one started molding. And so the program director, I was just a little concerned. I thought that I was gonna have to replace these. And then she actually enjoyed how that kind of fed more into the concept of this deterioration. But that also leads to archival problems. So I had to figure out an alternative. So this is actually food display cheese. And it's actually quite working nicely. So the image is a little bit clearer, and they won't rot. But I do continue to use the actual cheese, so that I scan the image before and after, and so I'm hoping to create an artist book at the end of the project.
Nice. Showing them. So how many airplane window cheese pieces have you created?
So far, 15 in this show. In the original show, there were 8. And so I'm just kind of collecting more and more images. I would prefer that each image is different and not have the same image repeated over and over again. In the beginning with the test, that's something that I was kind of trying to figure out, if I wanted the same image or if I wanted multiple images. And I think like the multiple images has more of a representation of multiple identities being in that space, as opposed to one single homogenized identity.
More viewers looking out more windows.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Well, can you tell us about this piece 608?
Sure, of course. So 608 it's the 608 miles of wall that have been constructed along the United States and Mexico border. My parents live in Texas. My dad lives in Dallas. My mother lives in Brownsville. And so Brownsville is actually the most southern tip of Texas. And so you see that port and you see that fence or wall. And my mother's lived there for about 10 years, and it's the first time that I've actually been really confronted with this kind of structure. And it's been something that I have been kind of looking at for years. I just didn't know how to articulate or kind of what visual language I wanted to create. And I periodically will drive by and take video. I'm kind of fascinated by this structure and how this structure takes up space within this kind of rural community. I've had family members work for Border Patrol, who work for Customs, and so there is this kind of connection, and there is this sense of almost like a split of like the pride of being American and also working for the system, but then also there is that pride of being Mexican. And so it's very much of like this kind of bifurcation, and that's really what the show is kind of what I'm attempting to unpack and kind of come to terms with. And so this piece is this is 46 panels. It's originally 60 panels of a letterpress print. It's 3 colors. It's printed on the back on kinikata paper. So the kinikata is a translucent Japanese paper. And so we're able to see a landscape in the back, but then we're seeing the fence in the front. And so the fence has two colors. And the original image is created using copper plates that I scanned in and then kind of created these more abstract images. I've had desires to go up to the fence and like create, whether it's grubbings or rust prints. I just haven't had a chance to do it, so this was like my most, this is my kind of way of unpacking that.
Well, it's beautiful, and it absolutely does talk about the wall. And as a viewer, gives me the opportunity, not being in Brownsville, being in Carson City, to see it, and it's heartbreaking as a viewer. So it's a beautiful piece.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shall we go?
Yeah,
let's go look at the blanket.
Yeah.
Lauren, this piece is titled 545, and it's a two-color silk screen on a mylar blanket. Please tell us more.
So the 545 is the number of children, that was the news article that there were 545 children separated from their parents and they could not be relocated. So that was just kind of really heart-wrenching for me, and I didn't know how, it was just really difficult to process. And then seeing the images of these children in mylar blankets and not being able to like have objects that are so important to the cultivation of like when you're at that age and you're growing up. And like, so for me growing up, my mother always made fun of me because it's like she'd call me Linus, because I had a baby blanket that I would carry around everywhere, and it was tattered, but it didn't matter, and she still has them. And so it's this object that I held security to, and that was like so important in seeing these young individuals not even able to have that opportunity, and then just having that feeling of being helpless. And so the image is a scan of my baby blanket and then rasterized to make it look pixelated. So it is this kind of black and white image. And it's printed on a mylar blanket. So these are the things that are given. It's super fragile. It's torn in places just because of the nature of the mylar. Yes, it does insulate heat, but there is this level of fragility behind it. And so kind of thinking about that time for children in that moment, and even if it's young children or like older children, there's still this level of fragility that is being toyed with. And so it's my kind of way of processing that interaction.
Thank you. There's an artist book around the corner. So first tell us, some people may not know what an artist book is. So
of course, so an artist book is, I like to view it as this intimate space for a viewer to kind of have their own personal like interaction with a piece. Artist books are really, they're using the book as a platform to convey whatever visual language. They can have text, the text can be experimental, the text doesn't have to be experimental, there can be no text. And so this is a book that actually has no text. And the text that it does have that would explain the book is, it's called Assimilation. So it was created this past summer. It's essentially the unpacking of the piece that's outside on the front called Assimilation. So the image, as you kind of thumb through it, there's an image of a young woman, a young girl standing in front of a Mexico building, and then you see the actual Mexican flag. And so this kind of profile, this is not me. I identify with this young girl. And so it's 18 pages of Mylar, so almost 18 slides representing 1 year. And so those are the 18 years of me living with my parents and kind of being in this, this Mexican American culture, living bilingual, having parents that were very much of that identity. And then upon reaching 18, it switches to a image of me. And that is now, but having long hair, you see my, the back head of my profile, and I'm in this kind of neutral space. And so there's 17 images of that, and it's more so me kind of moving towards assimilating to a more neutral identity, even though I strive to kind of reconnect with the Mexican American aspect of myself. And whether it's practicing speaking Spanish or trying to kind of cultivate, like keep that cultivation because it's so important. And so this artist book is just essentially the print outside kind of pulled apart. So we're seeing all the layers kind of build up to create this one image.
Let's go out and look at the images that relate to the book. Portraits have the same title as the artist book, so tell us more.
Of course. So these prints are just a single print. So my work originally, I'm attracted to minimalistic work. I like black and white. I like that kind of quiet aspect of minimalism. But I also am attached to like having a concept and like trying to like engage with the viewer a little bit beyond. So these images, so it's the same as the artist book because they're just kind of two different versions of the same idea. So as a printer, I printed the same plates on the same sheet of paper 35 times. So it's 17 with the young woman, and then it's 18 with the young woman, representing 18 years, and then 17 with my profile. And so when you look at the image, which is actually quite difficult to photograph and to also scan, because there is this like small, like this faint silhouette that you see where these images start to kind of come together. And so it's almost asking the viewer to kind of investigate, but then also think about that absence and presence in one's own identity.
So it's a beautiful metaphor, and it ties in beautifully with the back image on the back of your artist book that you can see through the window.
Yeah. And so it was just trying to kind of engage with the viewers and the audience through that.
Well, thank you. You have very clear explanations of your work. Thank you very much. It's a beautiful exhibition, so we invite everybody to come see.
Yes, please. Thank you for having me, and I am really grateful to be able to show this work here.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks, Lauren. Thank you, Lauren, so much. CCAI commissioned, in addition to the exhibition, CCAI commissioned an essay about the show by Josie Glassberg from Reno. It offers additional information and insight into Lauren's work. You can see it in the gallery, get a handout, or it's linked online on CCAI's website at ccainv.org. Thank you so much to Western Nevada College, to CCAI's members and funders, and to Lauren. Thank you.
Thank you.